Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. Before we begin the festivities this week, wanted to give you a heads up about this coming episode that you're about to listen to. The audio quality is admittedly not going to be at a standard that we would like. Now, what do I mean by that? Because if you listen to the show on a regular basis, you know the audio quality is needs work, period. We do the absolute best we can with the equipment that we have, but, sometimes it's good, sometimes not so good. And any podcast can say that, but we just wanted to give you a quick warning ahead of time. Now, the entire episode, you're going to be able to hear just fine. You're going to hear the conversation just fine. And it's a really, really good episode. But did want to give you that heads up at the start here, that it's going to be a different sounding episode, so you definitely want to have it tuned up a little bit when the show proper begins. So with that, let's start the show.
If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim Jousma, and with me is...
My name is Kim.
Kim the Geek. Drum roll, please.
Kim the Geek.
Yes, absent another week thanks to work, unfortunately.
Yeah, work has just been... I think it's the first of the year, and it's just been crazy. I don't know if everybody's still, taking vacations or what. We've been short-staffed at work. We've been slammed. We've had computer outages. It's just been hell.
To the point that there was one day on the way home after you picked me up from work that I convinced you for the briefest of seconds that the band name Nickelback was Canadian slang for butt sex.
Very briefly, yes. I was like, what? Wait a second. Yeah, I was really tired that night.
Yeah. I mean, even though I ended up convincing myself near the end, too, because it does sound something like a Canadian would say, are you ready for a Nickelback gay?
Yeah, we were trying to think of what the band name actually meant, and then we had all kinds of theories and ideas.
And I took it to the lowest brow possible.
Of course you did, because that's what you do.
Yep, if you are a long-time listener of the show, you know this to be true. But also, one benefit for you of not being here last week was that you were not able to listen to Psychoderelict.
Yeah, and when I saw that was the album that you had chosen, I did listen to a couple tracks on Spotify, and yeah, it wouldn't have been a very fun show. I would have been just sitting here going, "It sucks," and then you would have been crying afterwards.
I would not have cried that much.
Exactly. But yeah, Pete Townsend, I think what I said to you earlier, I think is really the case. He thinks he's better than he actually is.
Well,
he thinks he's more talented than he actually is. Because honestly, I mean, he did some interesting stuff in the 70s, but it's not the 70s anymore.
What I like about Psychoderelic ultimately is what I like about films like The Toxic Avenger, like Cannibal the Musical. It is imperfect. It's not an album that, is necessarily meant for the general public. It's confusing in a lot of ways. You have to know a lot of Pete Townsend's personal history to be able to understand that album.
Yeah.
But I like the fact more than anything that he thought, fuck it. This is what I want to do. The world's going to see it.
Well, yeah, I guess that's cool that, he just was like, I'm just going to do what I want to do. That's great. But, The Toxic Avenger and Cannibal the Musical are meant to be funny. And Pete Townsend, that Psychoderelic album, he wasn't trying to be funny.
There were some funny parts. I mean, some great lines.
No, but it wasn't general kind of, lowbrow comedy kind of stuff like Toxic Avenger is. I mean...
But you get my point, though. The fact that the people that made those films would still put out the best possible film that they could, regardless of how imperfect that being was.
Yeah, and that's true, but Psychoderelict was not perfect in any way. It was not that good. And I know you liked it, but I think probably based on his album sales of that album, he and his devoted fans were the only people who enjoyed that album.
I'll put it this way. It will still stand as one of my favorite Pete Townsend albums and one of my favorite albums overall. I am the first to admit it is far from perfect. I'm not deluding myself, in comparing it to like Sergeant Pepper or anything like that. But for me, more than anything, it's the songs on the album. They stand up, especially songs like Now and Then, which I think is a really beautiful song. Stand up and make the weak, and for me, kind of outshine the weaknesses on that album.
I don't know. I think it sounded dated even for the time that it was released.
It was again, as I
know
said
you said that it was released at the wrong time, and that was so true. He should have just, I don't know. He should have released it in the late '80s or sat on it until the end of the '90s when people were kind of like, "Hey, why don't we try some, sort of retro stuff again?"
Those stupid kids with their retro. Anyway,
so it's a new week. New day, new week, whatever.
Yep. And
it's a new show.
And we have a new event in pro wrestling that has been rather historic.
Tell us about it, Tim.
All right.
You wrestling nerd, you.
Yeah, this past Sunday at Impact Wrestling's pay-per-view called Hard to Kill. The main event was Impact World Champion Sami Callihan facing off against third-generation wrestler, and for the very first time on a major promotion, a female talent by the name of Tessa Blanchard facing off for the World Championship. And she ended up winning.
Good for her.
It is good for her because Impact did it the absolute right way. Wrestling's a story. People know this by now. It's not a secret. And what they did with her versus Sami Callihan, that story's been going on for over a year, to where they've been having battle after battle, and she ended up losing and losing and losing. But her fighting spirit, she kept on coming back until she became, again, the first female performer to hold the world championship of a major wrestling organization in the United States.
Good for her.
I
think that's great. I'm always down for more women being recognized as top athletes in just about any sport.
And that's the thing too. I mean, for wrestling is not UFC. Now, if we were talking about someone suggesting that Ronda Rousey should face off against Brock Lesnar in the octagon, no.
That's a little brutal.
Yeah.
Because wrestling's a lot more sort of acrobatic, more gymnastics kind of based than UFC, which is just down and dirty, smack them around.
And that's fighting as well. And I think ultimately, while the same principle as I hold female performers in wrestling applies, and the fact that if a woman did knowingly sign the contract to face off against a male performer, she is taking into account all the possibilities that could happen during that fight.
Yeah.
It's just society is never going to be comfortable on a mainstream, national, worldwide level of a man and a woman facing off in a combat sport.
And some of that, I think, just has to do... some of it is traditional gender bias type stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think some of it is, too, is that, unfortunately, a lot of people have been exposed to some kind of domestic violence in their lives, whether it's their parents or their grandparents or, themselves, where, a man's been hitting on a woman, or vice versa, I suppose. That does happen. And it's just uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
It can be uncomfortable for some people to watch on a very primal level. They may not even understand themselves. They just see it and they're like, why do I feel so weird watching this?
Yeah. And until we get to a point in society that we can accept that an athlete is, smart enough to know the pros and cons of taking on a particular fight.
Yeah, and until we get to a point in society where partners aren't beating on each other.
That too. We're not going to see that in mainstream legitimate combat sports. However, pro wrestling gives people the benefit of wanting to of actually seeing this in action without the actually that there as your point about wrestling is it's choreographed. It's not ballet. People get hurt all the time, but it's still choreographed. It's meant to tell a story.
Well, people get hurt in other choreographed things like dance and ballet, as an example.
Those are for wimps. Fuck that.
No. Dancers and like say Cirque du Soleil performers.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, people do get hurt all the time in those genres, but they're definitely trained performers. They're athletes.
Yeah. And again, telling a story. I mean, these days, what's selling out in movie theaters? I mean, Captain Marvel, women empowerment, women taking on roles that they generally don't in forms of entertainment, and companies are making millions upon millions of dollars with it.
And plus, a lot of people are also, they're kind of going away from a lot of the norms in other forms, like in ballet, as an example. There's actually, I read an interesting article on the Washington Post a couple of weeks ago about an African American ballet dancer who was dancing the lead in the Nutcracker.
Mm.
So I mean, that's such a tradition. Ballet is just such a traditionally very white activity. I mean,
not just white
activity, but that's expanded to include all races, all nationalities, everything. So there's no reason why we can't expand our open-mindedness of different people in general into other sports and activities like that. I think it's great. I think it's fun to watch. It makes it more interesting.
It does, when it's done correctly, of course. I mean, I've as a fan, I've kept up with the whole Tessa Blanchard storyline, and I've really appreciated how Impact Wrestling has made that story feel legitimate. Mm-hmm. Tessa is presented as an athlete. Her weaknesses are shown as well as her strengths, and in a combat sport especially, an athlete is able to understand how their weaknesses can be manipulated, and in the next fight they go into, they do their best to make sure that those weaknesses are not exploited. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's brought folks to brought that company to considering Tessa Blanchard for that particular role. However, there was some controversy.
There's always controversy.
Yeah. The day before this particular match that she had, on a Saturday, she put out a tweet. I don't recall the exact wording of it, but it was, women should stick together type of tweet. Mm-hmm. we're better if we're partners type of deal. But a lot of her old co-workers, not just in Impact Wrestling, but in other organizations as well, came out and, accused her of bullying. And the worst accusation that has came out is the fact that there was apparently an incident in Japan with her and a young woman who was of African descent. And the accusation is that Tessa spit on this woman and called her a racial epithet.
Oh, God. That's awful. Tessa.
It is.
Why you do that, Tessa? That's not good.
Yeah. Reading up on this, apparently she does have, in wrestling they call it rumor and innuendo, thanks to the Conrad Thompson show. But, telephone, telegram, telewrestler type of deal. When something occurs, the entire wrestling industry knows about it, essentially.
Yeah. Most industries are small worlds. I know it is for my industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And essentially word of, her past actions came out. Like, I knew she had briefly been with the WWE back in 2015 and 2016 with their developmental organization NXT, which is actually graduated to being on the USA Network. And Kim and I are going to be going to the first NXT TakeOver special in Portland that is not associated with a major pay-per-view. And there's one match that's announced. That's Finn Balor versus Johnny Gargano, and that's going to kick ass.
I'm actually really excited to go see this. I've always wanted to see pro wrestling live at some point, ever since I was a kid in the 80s and watching Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and those wrestlers. Yeah, I know. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about this event. I'm excited to go. I'm not so excited about being in an arena with a lot of testosterone. That is going to be a little uncomfortable, I think.
Well,
but overall, I'm excited to go.
I will say about the NXT crowd is that it's NXT is a lot more diverse in terms of the audience than what you see on Raw or SmackDown.
That's good.
Shows.
That's a bonus.
Especially with the fact that A lot of their main performers, the ones that are drawing the most money, are in fact women.
Okay.
There is. I know there's one performer. I really hope she ends up being on the show, but her name is Shayna Baszler. And
Oh yeah, I remember looking at some of. I've been kind of doing a little bit of research about different wrestlers, just because part of being a good partner is learning about your partner's interests. So.
which means I will be going to a drag show at some point soon.
It is true. Next time there's a drag show in town that I want to see, I'm going to make Tim go with me.
Yeah, and speaking of this, something I forgot to mention last week too is that speaking of female wrestling fans, and this is off topic, we'll get back on the topic here in a minute. There is a young lady on Twitter, follows me, I follow her. She is a huge Becky Lynch fan.
Oh, I like Becky Lynch.
Yeah, she, I guess she's in high school and whatnot and was a big Becky Lynch fan, but, just over time, the more I've followed her on Twitter, I saw how much of a fan she was. So, one time when these people that were putting together a book, were talking about, hey, do you know any female fans? And they just put it as a general retweet. I made sure that, I linked her and said, hey, you should contact these people. And wouldn't you know it, I got her a book deal.
A book deal?
Yeah, it was, put it like, it wasn't not a book deal per se. It was essentially what this book did is they got a lot of stories from female wrestling fans about their experiences. And she was one of the people that contributed.
Oh, that's cool. So she was a contributor.
Contributor, yeah. But, it sounds better when I say I got her a book deal.
Yeah. Let's exaggerate a little bit more, Tim.
Me?
You? What?
I know. But the name of that book, I'm trying to bring it up right now, called Women Love Wrestling. Definitely recommend giving it a purchase on Amazon. It's only $4.99, so you're not going to break the bank on that. The other thing, too, is she has a podcast, the Rope Talk Wrestling Podcast. Definitely give that a listen. And what you will appreciate more than anything, what I've appreciated by following her on Twitter and listening to her podcast, is her passion.
I appreciate passion.
And I think it's important for people who have like a white male like myself. Let's put it that way. Someone who the wrestling industry caters to more often than not, to amplify the voices of other fans' experiences as well. So that's why I bring that up. So I'm glad I got her a book deal. But anyway, back to Tessa. She has since, after the accusations have come out, I guess the other day, she waited about a week, came out and didn't necessarily apologize, but she apologized, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's one of those deals of, I would never be a racist, but if I caused any sort of problems, then I feel bad and I will work. She mentioned something about using her platform to work to fight racism. Reading up on it, thanks to Dave Meltzer, apparently, since this controversy started, Tessa and the woman in question that she had the bad interaction with in Japan, let's put it that way, have talked, and they are at peace.
That's good.
So that's good there, but
perhaps she should take some anger management courses, or perhaps some kind of book about thinking before you speak, even in anger.
Well, yeah, that's what I was mentioning about NXT too before I got off on a tangent, is the fact that the reason that Tessa Blanchard, a third-generation wrestler, her father was Tully Blanchard, who is in the famed Four Horsemen. Her stepfather is Magnum TA, a name I don't expect you to remember, but he was big in the Jim Crockett promotion in the late 80s on 605 on Saturday night on TBS. But he had a big car accident and, by the end of the 80s wasn't in the business anymore. But you would think someone with her pedigree, with her parents, would be hired by the WWE, but apparently she wasn't because of her past. Impact decided to take that chance with her, and now they have this. Now, on the one hand, since it involves racism, I am not the person to comment up or down on, what her punishment should be. Because, her comments were not about me, and that's comments that she will have to work at for many, many, many years going forward to prove that she does not mean if what she said is true. But it does make me think about how people, myself included, as I will bring up, momentarily, we talked about briefly on a past episode how easy it is to get caught up in online controversies.
It is. It's easy to get caught in the heat of the moment, too, and say things that you don't mean, which is why when you argue with people, it's okay to argue. It's not okay. It's okay to have differences of opinions. It's not okay to call names and just resort to screaming. If you have an issue that you're upset about, that you're angry about, you got to try and remain calm and talk it out.
And not call someone a poopy-faced tomato nose.
Yep, pretty much.
I think back to one of our previous episodes when we talked about the Ring of Honor controversy with Kelly Klein and the women of Ring of Honor not getting a good payday. The reason I bring that up is that more information has since come out about that.
Yeah, it turns out they were being offered a good amount of money.
Yeah, for the size of their organization, for a performer getting offered $50,000 is not a bad thing. And apparently, instead of being offered $24,000, she was offered $50,000 a year, which she did not happen to talk about.
Yeah, and $50,000 a year, that's not a bad salary.
Not a bad salary, on top of the fact that in terms of merchandising, they're in control of that.
Oh, so they get a cut of the merchant?
No, they get it all because as independent wrestlers, they
control their own merch.
They do control their own merch, and a lot of times for companies, even though it's owned by Sinclair Broadcasting, Ring of Honor is still not the biggest wrestling company in the world, so they're not going to be offering seven-figure contracts by any means. So if there's a way for the merch for the wrestlers to make extra money off of merch, then Ring of Honor doesn't really have to pay anything to still ultimately make them happy, and then at that point it would be up to the wrestler to promote their own stuff, because there's one tag team called the Young Bucks who are now executive vice presidents of All Elite Wrestling, who got famous and rich because they were able to promote their stuff. So it's possibly the $50,000 may seem small to some people, but you got to take it into account the size of the organization in question, plus the fact that she could take other bookings and make money off of her merch. But she and Joey Mercury, the producer who was claiming that Ring of Honor was having bad medical protocols, there was an accusation that Kelly Klein had a concussion, that there was no medical personnel around to evaluate. Other wrestlers in the organization have come out and said that is not true at all. Word has come out that this Joey Mercury guy was fired by Ring of Honor, and since then he has been trying to get some of the Ring of Honor talent to coalesce together into one big group, and he would be their agent and try to get them deals with All Elite Wrestling or the WWE. I ultimately fell for it, which
most people like to think the best of people.
Yeah, and I have no qualms with that either, because I do believe in the importance of believing the victim until the victim is shown to not be telling the truth.
That's very true, and that's a good way to think about it, because, you shouldn't be coming forward and saying things unless it's true. It's really, it's the golden rule. Be kind and be true and do unto others as you have them do unto you.
Yeah, and, that's... speaking to the controversies that we're talking about here with Tessa and with Kelly Klein, they both have a lot of work ahead of them. I think they're both talented as wrestlers, and I do hope that, they continue on successfully in the professional wrestling business going forward, but I think they both have a lot of work to repair the severe damage they've done.
Yeah, they do, and then the problem with lying about stuff too is that you then set a poor example, and people are less likely to believe other people when they come forward with problems and stuff.
Especially when her soon-to-be ex-husband now, accused her of cheating, and her ex-husband is working for All Elite Wrestling. So she's...
So much drama, and people think that, I don't know. There's so much drama in wrestling.
Yeah, behind the scenes.
I know.
I mean, that's
just ridiculous.
Well, I mean, obviously you can find that in any type of work atmosphere
I
as well.
suppose that's true, but that's a lot.
It is. It's been an eventful couple of months, but again, when it comes to Tessa Blanchard, it should be celebrated. Her title win, I think that is important overall for the professional wrestling industry as a whole. The fact that they were successfully able to present a woman as a legitimate contender for a world championship, and she ended up winning. It's just in order to make this something that people will remember for years on end and not grimace like baseball fans do with Barry Bonds' home run streak, home run record, she has a lot of work to do to repair that damage. Even if it was not as severe as people are saying, even if people are exaggerating somewhat, she has she has a lot of work to do, period.
Yeah.
So, you were watching a new show.
I was. On a happier note.
All right.
So Netflix has a new show called AJ and the Queen, and it stars RuPaul and a newcomer by the name of Izzy G.
Mm-hmm.
And it follows a drag queen by the name of Ruby Red, and there's I don't really want to give spoilers, but basically she's going on a road trip tour. And this somewhat homeless kid stows away in her RV.
Okay.
Yeah, a drag queen has an RV. And
didn't they have that in that Patrick Swayze drag queen movie?
No, they didn't have an RV. They had a convertible.
Okay.
But you're also thinking of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, too.
Okay.
They had a big bus.
Okay.
But no, she's a standard kind of RV, like a little mini Winnebago, and goes on a tour down the eastern seaboard and into the south, that sort of stuff. And they have adventures along the way, and it's they learn about each other, and it's one of those kind of feel good type shows. But there's a lot of drag, and that's a good thing. Yeah, because there isn't a season of RuPaul's Drag Race on right now. There's no new seasons of any drag related shows on at the moment.
Right. So
we've got AJ and the Queen on Netflix, which is good. And oh my gosh, talk about drag cameos. And I think what RuPaul did with this show is got everybody that's ever been on Drag Race their SAG cards.
This is the Avengers of Endgame of
just about. I mean, seriously, I have a partial list of queens that I just spotted
drag
on
queens
the show.
assemble.
Yeah, pretty much. So Latrice Royale was one of the guest stars. Chad Michaels, Katya, Trinity Taylor, Monique Hart, Ginger Minge, Jujubee, Jay Jolie, Pandora Box, Kennedy Davenport, Mariah, Jinx Monsoon, and there are more. So many more that I didn't even write down because there were so many, and I ran out of room on the page for doing my other notes too.
All right.
But yeah, it's kind of a feel good kind of show, and I think that if you like drag, or if you like Hallmark movies, you'll probably like this. And not just drag queens are sort of guest stars. There's some somewhat notable names that kind of show up in each episode.
Like Alan Alda.
No, there's no Alan Alda. No, let's see. Tia Carreras is one of the minor characters. She
works at a Wendy's now, right?
No.
I'm kidding.
Let me think. It's just every scene you'll see some familiar faces. Adrienne Barbeau.
This is Richard Belzer.
Yes, and oh gosh, what's his name? Mark Singer, which people will recognize him from the TV show V.
Okay. He's
in an episode. Let's see. Just, oh gosh, there's just so many just familiar faces. You're just huh. It's if if you can think of a minor character actor, you might think of them. You might see them. Oh, he was in Beastmaster too, Mark Singer.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm trying to, stupid fucking iPad. Trying to, I hate you, Apple. I really hate you.
Okay, well, Tim wrestles with his iPad. But yeah, and it's not just that the drag queens show up. There's actual drag numbers, too, which are always fun to watch. And RuPaul is actually a pretty good actor. I'm so used to seeing him in hosting mode on RuPaul's Drag Race.
Well, if you think about it, though,
seeing him as an actor, it's just not something that and I know he's been in other movies too, but I just haven't watched him, and it's something I'm not used to, but I really liked it, and I thought that the chemistry between him and Izzy G, who plays AJ, was really good.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it before when we've talked about drag racing. I mean, a lot of drag racing is similar to professional wrestling in the fact that they have to put on these personas. Not have to, but you know what I mean. They put on these personas that they have to live when they're on. And in that does take some acting skill.
It does.
You know, so there's that. And I know when I caught a brief scene when you were watching it, you know, RuPaul ended up looking like a Shaolin master.
Well, there's a couple of scenes where he wears these Asian-inspired outfits, sort of like Chinese jackets that go all the way up to the neck and have the little, I think they call them frog closures. I think that's what they're called. But yeah. Plus, what's kind of cool about this show is AJ is kind of playing this kind of gender fluid kid, and it's not really talked about, but it is talked about. It's just kind of accepted. It's like, okay, AJ is just AJ. And I thought that was good too. Yeah.
Reminds me of a new show that's in the works that's going to be on the new Peacock app. Apparently it's produced by Norman Lear. He's in his late 90s now, but still producing TV shows. He produced the reboot of One Day at a Time. That's not on Pop TV. But it's going to be a sitcom starring George Wallace and Laverne Cox. And it's going to be about a man played by George Wallace who lives in Alabama and, you know, welcomes his now daughter home.
Oh.
So that'll be on the new Peacock app.
I'd watch it.
Yeah.
I think Laverne Cox is very talented.
Yeah, I think she's great too, and it'd be great to see her in more stuff. But it's great to, you know, because this is, you know, the Peacock app, the Disney Plus app. That's what the future of television is going to be.
Yeah.
They're going to drift away more and more from free TV, and more than anything, the free TV stuff will probably just be promotions for, you know, download our app. You know, you don't get the full season, you can watch the rest on Peacock. Yay!
Yeah, that sort of thing, and I'm just happy that Netflix is just being. They're really good about pushing a lot of queer content. There's a lot of queer content on Netflix, and that is a good thing.
It is. Yeah,
there's a lot of there's a lot of movies that are produced by gay folks, or just queer in general. I tend to use queer as a blanket term. Not everybody likes the term, because it's been used as derogatory, but it's the term I feel best fits me. So I tend to use that a lot. So I hope nobody's offended by my use of that. So, yeah, I'm excited about it. I hope they do a season 2 of AJ and the Queen. I think it gave a lot of drag queens to do something outside of drag. I mean, they're still doing drag, but they're acting, and it's more exposure is great. The more that drag queens can diversify, the better and longer a career they'll have.
And it's stuff like this too that kind of demystifies it for people in the Midwest.
Oh yeah, totally. It demystifies it for everybody, and drag it's fun, and it's inclusive, and it's happy, it's joyful.
And I want to be clear too. What I mean by demystifies that, especially for the Midwest. I'm from the Midwest, and a lot of times you will have church folks, especially, but it's sometimes, you know, politicians that will give you ideas of what certain communities are like that end up not being true, that are simply being used for fear-mongering purposes.
Yeah, and what it comes down to is that people are people.
Yes.
We're all people. We all have, you know, we have partners, we have families, we go to work, we come home, we sleep, we eat, we poop. We're all the same. We're all people.
And we watch superhero movie trailers.
Because everybody likes superheroes.
Damn right.
Damn right.
All right. The new trailer for the movie Morbieus came out.
Yeah, I just watched it right before we started recording, and it looks kind of fun. I'm pretty sure that I've read some of the Morbieus comics back when I was subscribing to the Marvel app.
Yeah, I can't claim to know a whole heck of a lot about the Morbius character. I believe he was popular primarily in the early 90s. He may have been around beforehand.
I think he was around beforehand because the comics that I read had a decidedly kind of 70s, 80s look to them. That kind of like three-color, kind of almost cartoony look rather than the more recent comics graphic novel kind of.
Well, I just remember, like Todd McFarlane inspired covers from the early 90s type of deal, the kind of the exaggerated look.
Did they reboot it at some point then?
They don't ever really reboot anything in the Marvel Universe. Sometimes a character will go away for a while, and then, like 10, 20 years down the road, somebody else will say, I think I can do something with that character, and then bring him back.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a reboot to me.
Yes and no. I get your point, because technically it is. I mean, it's like with Doctor Who. Doctor Who was off the air for darn near 20 years.
Yeah, and then they resurrected it. Okay, it's a resurrection.
Essentially, yeah, because it's telling the same story going forward, but it's still technically a reboot because it's different. In this case, with a comic, different artists, different whatever, putting a story together, but it's still continuing the story. Blah blah blah. But a couple of things and we're going to talk about two superhero topics here, real quick, because I don't think this is something we're going to be spending 45 minutes on discussing.
Yeah, we got an album to talk about too.
Yeah, but the Morbius trailer had two very interesting things. One, about halfway through the trailer, Jared Leto as Dr. Morbius was walking through an alley, and on his left was a poster of Spider-Man, which is important for a couple of things. One, with these movies that Sony has started to make, like Venom was the first one, and this will be the second one here, taking characters from the Spider-Man universe and turning them into their own movies and whatnot. This will be the first time that Spider-Man has been explicitly mentioned in those movies, especially with which is interesting too, with the recent brouhaha late last year of the contract between Marvel and Sony ending, which did result in one more MCU version of Spider-Man movie coming out, and apparently this summer is when filming is going to start for that. And two, it will be one more guest spot for Peter Parker in the MCU, which at this point, based on this trailer, and the fact that we saw Michael Keaton as Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, pop up in this trailer. For those that may not recall, that was the main villain of Spider-Man Homecoming, Tom Holland's first Spider-Man movie.
Never saw it.
You did?
No.
I thought we saw it.
No.
I mean, I own it. We can watch it whenever.
I still never saw it, but yeah.
Yeah, but that is very interesting that they're doing that, and it makes me think that the guest spot that we're going to see Peter Parker in will be the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness movie. And what I think could potentially happen, I think it may be a mistake if they go this route, but what I think we'll probably see happen is that Peter Parker's reality will get shifted to another multiverse. And then that way the third movie can properly end Peter's affiliation with the MCU, but allows Sony to continue on with Tom Holland and those characters in future movies. The reason I say I don't like that idea is that I would just love to, if the Marvel and Sony contract has to end, let it end, but don't have it have a definitive, this will never ever happen again type of feel to it. Okay. Because I think financially overall, if there's even the slightest hint that, Peter Parker could show up and with the Avengers again, that benefits everybody. But it was rather interesting that they're going this route, because another movie that they have made no secret in terms of hinting towards, Sony that is the Sinister Six.
Okay, here's my gripe. Mm-hmm. Why did they cast Jared Leto? Jared Leto is stuck in the mindset, he's in a lot of people's minds as being the Joker from Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
He's the Joker. That's a DC character. Why is he now suddenly a Marvel character?
Michael Keaton was Batman, but...
Yeah, that was a long time ago, though.
But you still ask most people, they're going to say Michael Keaton is their Batman.
Yeah, but there's enough of a gap. There's a pretty good time gap there.
And I will say too,
we're talking with Suicide Squad, it's not that long ago.
But that movie was also not. It may have been financially successful. It was not critically successful with the
that
audience.
doesn't matter though. Everybody saw all the freaking posters with Jared Leto's grinning face.
Doesn't mean they accepted him in that role.
Well, they're still gonna see this trailer and go, "Why is the Joker in a Marvel movie?" That was my very first thought. Even though I know he's not the Joker, but
think back
even
to.
though I know he's an actor and he's not actually the Joker, that sort of thing. But
Chris Evans. Look at Chris Evans.
what about Chris Evans? He's Captain America.
But before that, he was Johnny Storm. He was the Human Torch in the Fantastic Four movies, and people when he was first cast as Captain America, people had the same argument that you had with Jared Leto and the Joker.
One, nobody cares about the Fantastic Four. Two, nobody cares about the Fantastic Four. Those movies have just been failures all the way around. Nobody cares about the Fantastic Four.
My mom does. No. Your mom's dead in the closet.
Seriously though, and the Fantastic Four and the Human Torch, those are somewhat minor characters in terms of comic book characters. If you ask someone to name a comic book character, or like 5 comic book characters, they're going to say Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, the Joker, and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I will agree that the Fantastic Four would not necessarily be on tops of that list, and I agree that
they're
movies...
not even going to make the top 20.
They should.
Well, I'm not saying that they're necessarily bad characters. They're not bad characters. They haven't had decent scripts. They haven't had decent directors.
That's the problem right there, because they were the building blocks of the Marvel universe.
Yeah, they're interesting characters. They just haven't had very nice treatment. It would be like if the X-Men had been really treated badly. The X-Men are great characters. I think the X-Men movies have been all around not bad.
The X3, The Last Stand, was garbage.
Well, that's the third movie. The first 2 were fine, and the newer ones that they've done have been pretty decent.
Well, and the first couple, too, were directed by that child rapist, Bryan Singer.
Yeah, well, let's not talk about Bryan Singer. We're not talking about Bryan Singer. He's an asshole. We all agree he's an asshole.
Yeah. Anyway, with Morbius, definitely check out that trailer. I was not inclined to want to see this movie beforehand, but the Spider-Man poster and the appearance of Adrian Toomes definitely piqued my interest on where Sony's going. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the resolution.
Can I say one more thing about Morbius?
Go ahead.
I like vampire stuff. I like vampire movies. I don't like vampires that sparkle. Vampires should be bursting into flames when the sun hits them.
Right.
So, I'm excited to see a vampire in a movie, because Morbius is a vampire. Ooh, spoiler alert, it shows it in the trailer.
Right.
I'm happy to see a vampire that's acting like a vampire, even though he's going to be definitely portrayed as sexy. But it's not like a brooding, woe is me, I'm a vampire kind of thing. It's going to be a powerful, badass vampire. I'm down for that.
All right.
So I'm down to see Morbius.
Boom. All right. Well, like I said, Crisis on Infinite Earths, episodes 4 and 5 hit. And
I really should watch that.
It's really, really good. I appreciated it. One big secret surprise that they unleashed on the audience was the fact that Ezra Miller, who plays Barry Allen in the Zack Snyder DC movies, The Flash, makes an appearance as Barry Allen, The Flash.
Awesome.
That was pretty awesome. I mean, and I couldn't believe that there were some people that were against that, because one, that shows that Warner Brothers still has major faith in those characters that, Zack Snyder brought together. And two, it shows that they also have faith in the TV show. Why would they want to potentially damage their movie property by associating them with a TV show that's not really connecting with audiences? But definitely appreciated that. And the ending, spoilers here, the ending, what happened is that, once the entire multiverse was destroyed, the heroes were able, thanks to Barry Allen's Speed Force, to fix everything and recreate the multiverse again.
Of course, they were able to fix things.
But what they did is that, because initially before this show started, the DC the Arrowverse characters, as they're called, the DC properties on the CW, some of them were in different multiverses. they've combined all of those TV shows into one universe now. So the CW universe is, has all those characters in one universe. So that was a great thing. So that essentially gives them a chance to legitimately bring them all together every year without having some convoluted way to get them out of the multiverse. And secondly, two little quick cameos. One was the fact that the building that they were at, an old Oliver Queen Industries building, the outside of it looked exactly like the Hall of Justice from the Super Friends. They had, at the end of the episode, when the heroes were all together in that new building, talking, they heard a noise in the background, some laughing, and then some steel breaking. Space Monkey Gleek.
Oh my gosh, I love the Super Friends. Super Friends are so fun.
Yeah, so who knows if we will see Zan and Jaina, the Wonder Twins, in future seasons, but if they brought us Gleek, if they hinted at Gleek, they need to bring the Wonder Twins to the CW. Because think about it, I mean, that Zan and Jaina get, again, two supermodels together, like the CW does for every single one of their shows, and have them, be superheroes, teens with angst, and you could tell their love stories and still have them fighting and whatnot.
And then you have, like, the computer graphic capability now to turn them into anything.
Yeah. Now, again, like I mentioned last time, the special effects for for Crisis on Infinite Earths is, you're not going to get an Avengers Endgame level of special effects.
Still, there's a lot they can do.
There's a lot that they can do. It's just that if you come into this, I definitely recommend you. It works for me the same way the animation works in South Park, and that's because the story makes you care about what's going on, so it doesn't matter that the special effects are not, blockbuster movie quality.
Yeah.
So, anyway, definitely give that a shot. Now, it is our album review!
Can I ask you a question first?
Sure.
Are you going to finish watching The Mandalorian now?
Well, yeah.
Now that Crisis on Infinite Earths is done?
Yeah.
Okay.
I promise.
Okay, just making sure.
I mean, we're paying for that subscription, might as well.
Yeah, no kidding. Because it's good. Mandalorian's really good, by the way, if you haven't watched it yet. Use your free month for Disney Plus and watch it and binge it. It's all out right now.
And take advantage of that bundle deal. I mean, the bundle deal with Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN, that covers 90% of most people's viewing interest on TV.
Pretty much, yeah. Have you even loaded a ESPN?
I have, but I've, apart from rewatching the Ric Flair documentary, I didn't really watch much.
And of course, it's wrestling.
When it's a documentary about the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun, you gotta watch it.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
All right. So, yes, we're on to our album of the week now.
All right.
And it was my choice. Kim's choice. La la la. Yay. So I chose Weird Al Yankovic. And the album is In 3D from 1984.
Now,
1984.
Now, what I'm going to repeat something I mentioned last week on the show because this album does have a wrestling related connection.
Yeah, don't go on forever about it. We've had enough wrestling this episode, I think.
Okay, well, I was going to say that Rick Derringer, who produced the album, was so successful with this album that Vince McMahon noticed it and hired him to create the wrestling album, where Rick Derringer wrote the theme song that ended up becoming Hulk Hogan's theme song, Real American.
Hulk Hogan.
So thank Weird Al Yankovic for that. Second of all, when it comes to Weird Al, I respect him. I think he's a great guy. I would go to one of his concerts, but as you will find out as we go through this track by track, I'm not a fan of the music, and it's complicated, but we'll go into it. But just know that I am going to be open with my critiques, but it is not out of a lack of respect for Weird Al Yankovic. Okay. His reputation precedes itself.
Good to know. So I chose this album because this was basically my intro to the concept of novelty music. And by novelty music, I mean like song parodies, kind of like goofy nonsense songs.
Fish
that
heads,
sort of
fish
yeah, exactly.
Heads,
songs
roly-poly,
like Fish Heads, songs like Pac-Man Fever, stuff like that.
Well, the first time I ever heard of Weird Al was April Fool's Day in the mid-'80s. MTV used to have a countdown with Dr. Demento.
Yeah.
And that's Dr. Demento, for folks that don't know, was a radio DJ whose expertise was finding songs like, what we're going to describe in the album here, or Fish Heads, or some of the other crazy
Just
stuff.
weird, odd, offbeat stuff. And listening to Weird Al is what led me to listen to bands like They Might Be Giants, The Dead Milkmen, bands like that. They do kind of songs about nothing, but they're fun and they're goofy and they're wacky and
The Seinfeld of music.
I wouldn't say that, because they do more than just go with those little bass riffs that are always in Seinfeld shows. Now we're at the diner. Now we're at the comedy club. That sort of thing. Anyhow, so yeah, Weird Al in 3D. We had this album on vinyl. I think my mom got it through the Columbia Record Club because my sister and I like the song "Eat It" so much.
Oh! Those record club folks that don't.
Yeah, the like Columbia. Yeah,
because what my friend Chris ended up teaching me is that what you could do is with those clubs, like pick and choose, and then like what you had to do was like send it to start off. You just had to send like $1.
Yeah, it was like a penny.
Yeah, or a penny
or
something like that. So what he used to do and taught me how to do is he would continually go through those and use different names each and every time.
Oh, yeah, with variations on the name so that the little computer doesn't pick up on it.
Yep, and then by the time it sends in your next song, you just ignore it. It goes away.
Yeah, you have to cancel it. You have to write cancel on the little thing and send it back. But that was the Columbia House Record Club. That was the way to stock up on albums.
That's how we did music before Spotify.
And then CDs. That is how you amass your greatest hits collection.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we did before the days of streaming services and the internet.
Or Napster.
Or even Napsters before we did that sort of thing. So yes, that's how we got this album. We had it on vinyl and we recorded it onto cassette tapes and traded it around with friends. And it was, and listening to this album again, I realized how many times I must have listened to it as a child because I knew all the lyrics to most of the songs. There's only one song where I have some trouble with the lyrics, is King of Sway, because I can't get the lyrics. There's so much going on there. Anyhow, we'll talk about that more when we get to that track. So we got 11 songs, and what's interesting about this Weird Al album is that he has some original songs on here that aren't parodies of other songs. And I think this is one of the only albums that he does this on.
Well, still though, some of the originals per se, and we'll go into it as we go on here, some of the originals were still inspired by other performers.
Oh yeah, still inspired by other things, and
so it was done in the vein of a particular artist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so like I said, 11 tracks. Track 1, "Eat It," which is based on the song "Beat It" by Michael Jackson. This is a classic. This is the classic track of the album. Most everybody has heard this.
Yeah.
And I still love it. Have some more chicken, have some more pie.
Again, this song has just been played so much.
It has been overplayed, but I hadn't listened to it in a long time when I put the album on to listen to it again, and I was I was in the car. I was having too much fun in the car with this album.
I think I compare this to people that get annoyed at Monty Python jokes.
Oh.
Just because of the fact that, like the parrot sketch, everybody gets the premise of the fucking parrot sketch.
Mm.
And it's not funny to watch anymore just because you've seen it so many times. And with Eat It, musically sounds pretty much the same as the original song. I believe it's brought down an octave or two.
I think he brought it up an octave.
Or it was adjusted. It's not note for note. The octave was
adjusted. It's not note for note, but it's close enough that I'm pretty sure Michael Jackson's estate gets royalties from it still.
Yeah, and the video, of course.
That was like a scene-by-scene remake.
Yeah, with some of the same actors as well. But again, just done so much.
Yeah, you're sounding like me with Abbey Road, with some of the songs on Abbey Road, where I was just like, I've heard it so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. That's totally cool. So the next song is called Midnight Star, and that is one of the original tracks that isn't really related to a song. I like this song a lot because I love supermarket tabloids. I love how trashy they are. I used to have a subscription to Weekly World News at one point. because it just cracks me up. It's so stupid and fake and dumb.
I remember one
I
issue I
wanna
saw in the
know,
grocery store where
know.
they had definitive pictures of Abraham Lincoln dressed as a woman.
Okay, yeah, and Bat Boy. There's always Bat Boy from
Yeah.
Weekly World News.
Now the song, to me, the opening of it at the very least sounded kind of like late 70s Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, I can see that.
And apparently that this song, Weird Al wanted this to be the first single off the album. And I think that if that did end up becoming the case, we might not necessarily be talking about this album.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't be talking about this album. Yeah.
Yeah. It's to be clear, not a bad song because it is an original and not playing off of something else or talking about food. It's enjoyable. I'm not gonna have it on repeat myself, but this song was not bad.
Yeah, and it's got a lot of lines from the old Inquirer commercials. I don't know if you remember seeing those on TV.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a line in the song too. It's like, inquiring minds want to know. It's all like, yeah, I want to know, because there was a point in those old commercials where it was like, it would like say some weird thing, and it's like, and then there'd be like a random person popping up and be like, Princess Di pictured in blah blah blah. I want to know.
But it would always be like the woman like walking, it just her head walking into the screen saying, I want to know.
Exactly.
And it's just over dramatic.
I know. They're so 80s. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So much fun.
And
okay.
you could smell the hairspray from the TV.
Oh yeah, totally. You could totally smell the hairspray for sure. Okay, so track 3 is called The Brady Bunch, and it's based on the safety dance by Men Without Hats. I love this song because I love the Brady Bunch. I don't know if you knew that about me, but I absolutely love the TV show The Brady Bunch.
There's no accounting for taste.
You like wrestling.
I know.
I know, it's one of my kind of guilty pleasures because growing up, The Brady Bunch was always on TV when I would get home from school. Mm-hmm. And so I would work on my homework, watch The Brady Bunch.
Yeah, I mean, of course I'm kidding when I said that.
Yeah, I know you are.
I know one note I put in is that every single one of the TV shows he mentioned in that song I've seen before. Mm-hmm. So I've seen a lot of TV growing up. Wasn't a huge fan of the original song, The Safety Dance. It has some goofy, you can dance if you want to, that type of deal, but it's best left in the 80s.
Yeah, I've never been that huge of a fan of The Safety Dance.
Yeah. And the Brady Bunch, Sherwood Schwartz, who produced that show, also created shows like Gilligan's Island. I believe he had some involvement with The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis.
Lauren and Shirley.
No, that was Gary Marshall.
Oh, that was Gary Marshall. You're right. Right.
Don't correct me on TV.
No, gosh, I'm sorry.
But still, he had. I like Gilligan's Island better, but Sherwood Schwartz is kind of like the Chuck Lorre of the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And Chuck Lorre is the producer of like Two and a Half Men, of The Big Bang Theory, and that's essentially getting one core group of people together in an ensemble comedy where just situations just magically occur and it's all formulaic, and it's not necessarily bad, but sometimes it's all
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But I do like the Brady Bunch, and the song itself is talking about how much the guy doesn't want to watch the Brady Bunch.
I agreed with him on that.
So I was gonna say, he's singing your song, Tim. Why are you so upset?
Yeah. I'm just an angry man.
You are. Okay. So track 4, Buy Me a Condo. It's one of the original songs on the album. Here's the thing. I feel like this song is somewhat problematic. Little bit. So I didn't realize this when I was a kid listening to this song. But I'm listening to it now as an adult going, this song is a bit racist. It's kind of like blackface musical form.
Well,
because if you haven't heard the song, basically, Buy Me a Condo, he's singing it in the style of a reggae song. And he's singing it as if he is from Jamaica with the accent and everything, and it's problematic.
I mean, the lyrics were, I don't think the lyrics themselves necessarily indicated the race of the person. You could easily see a waspy person, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, for people that don't know, to live that life that was described in there.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, to your point, it was, kind of like Frank Sinatra singing Old Man River. It just, you're not comfortable hearing it.
Yeah, and well, if you listen to just the lyrics kind of, in a way, they kind of describe a little bit of the immigrant experience, trying to like sort of blend into society, because it talks about how he's gonna cut off all his dreadlocks and throw away his ganja, and he's gonna like get rid of his reggae records and get some Jackson Brown, and he's talking about homogenizing himself, which, if you come to America, you don't want to do that. You should retain some of your original culture, because that's what makes America interesting.
But how I took it was, and I'm not saying that is an invalid way of looking at it, because I think there are multiple ways of looking at this song. The way I took it was more kind of, it reminded me of people that live in Portland. Kind of, they're in their late 20s. They're more of the, girl with the long beards and listen to the hippie music and whatnot. And then by the time they get in their 30s, then they want to adjust to talking about, investment banking and whatnot.
Oh, God, yeah.
And it, that's how I saw it.
And just home values and retirement accounts. And
yeah, just kind of going against what, this is what makes me happy, but I'm living here now, so I must be a part of everything else.
Yeah, I can see where you're seeing that too.
Yeah.
So overall, it's like I could still sing along with it, but I didn't really want to. I felt a bit uncomfortable listening to it.
You're like, is anybody hearing me?
Well, I was in the car, and it was like 6 a.m. driving home from work.
Smoke flying out the window.
No. There was no ganja smoking going on. So that's just. It's kind of a sore spot, I guess, on this album. It's one of the songs I'm just like, it's not appropriate for 2020.
No.
No.
Shame on you, Weird Al.
Yeah, well, shame on you, I guess. Nah. It was 1984. It was a different time.
Yeah, Reagan was president, and we all thought that was good.
I didn't. I wasn't that old, but I still knew that was a bad idea.
And with Reagan, I just learned recently, thanks to a podcast that we both listened to, Cocaine and Rhinestones, where they talked about an old country artist by the name of Spade Cooley, who brutally murdered his wife, but Ronald Reagan, as governor of California, gave him a full pardon.
Yeah.
So less said about Reagan the better.
Less said about Reagan the better. All right. So track 5, I Lost on Jeopardy, based on Our Loves in Jeopardy by the Greg Kihn Band. I don't, what, you're giving me this look, Tim. What's that look for? I like this song. I love the video. So funny.
The only thing I liked about this song was Don Pardo.
Oh yeah, that part's great. Where he just basically is telling Al what a complete and total loser he is, and all the things he's not going to get.
Yeah, for folks that don't know, and shame on you for not knowing, for our generation, he's probably more associated as the announcer of, Saturday Night Live,
just as an announcer, and like at the end of every game show, there was like a list of sponsors and like all the different prizes that the contestants were going to go.
You have won a towel.
No, it's like, our sponsors and our contestants will be taking home a supply of blah blah blah. Just like what it says in the song, like turtle wax and rice-a-roni, and then there's always a home game.
Well, he was an announcer for many, many, many years, going back to radio. So definitely anybody who watched television from the 50s till the 2000s. Don Pardo's voice. It's unmistakable. And while I will not claim to dig this song, hearing Don Pardo again,
that's always good. Yeah. Plus, the song referenced the home game, and that was a thing too that was pretty popular in the 80s. Is most game shows, they had a version they called the home game.
Before there were apps.
Before there were apps and before there were video games, they were like board game versions of the game show. And so there was one for Jeopardy. I know there was one for Wheel of Fortune because we had Wheel of Fortune.
I think the Wheel of Fortune one kind of stole the design from the Game of Life.
They did a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, because of the wheel and
the
how
spinner,
it's
yeah. So, yeah, now you can just like load up Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy on your phone and play it that way, and it's much better than the home game. But just the home game, a copy of the home game.
Oh my God.
That was a prize like every contestant went home with. If there was a home game, they went home with one.
Well, even talk shows of the day, like, Phil Donahue would advertise that you can buy the transcript of the Donahue show.
Oh, yeah. Or Oprah, any of those talk shows, you could call this number and get like a transcript.
Why?
I don't know. I guess if it was that important of a show, I don't know. But some people like to read that stuff, I guess. But anyway,
they're gonna like put, bring it to like a book binder and put like a leather copy. Episode 24 of the Phil Donahue Show, season 5.
People are strange. They, if they tape the shows, maybe they want the transcripts to go with them.
Phil didn't say that, sons of bitches.
Something like that. I don't know. But yeah, this song just. It just makes me wish I had been on a game show at least once in my life at some point. I would really love to be on a game show. I love game shows.
All right.
Okay, so track 6 is Polkas on 45. And I don't know about you, this is one of the highlights of this whole entire album for me. Because it's little snippets of a lot of classic songs all strung together in a polka with some crazy-ass accordion and banjo going on. And it is fun. I think it's really fun to listen to, and I can sing along with all the bits and pieces, and it's really scary.
Well, the music itself I dug. It was kind of up tempo, and you do bop your head when you're listening to it. It's just Weird Al sometimes with his voice will put on an affect of where he almost sounds like a kid when he's singing, and he did this talking about my generation, and just kind of an up tempo deal, and that just. It was too annoying. It was just like, I'm trying to be funny.
Oh, yeah. He does do that sometimes. That sort of, I'm trying to be funny. Kind of thing. Yeah, he does that. He does that a lot in the movie that he was in, UHF. I don't know if you ever saw UHF.
I dug that movie.
I like that movie a lot. Yeah. That's a fun movie. So, the Polkas on 45, it's like, if you can think of a classic song from the 70s or 80s, there's probably a snippet.
And 60s, and
60s,
My
that's
Generation
true.
from The Who.
Yeah, they did My Generation, and they did Hey Jude is in there.
Because when you think of polka, you think of the Beatles.
Yeah, if there's any song on this album that you listen to, I think it should be this one. Just because it's just so freaking goofy. And I like it. I like goofy.
All right. Well,
so,
thank God.
yeah. All right, so track 7 is Mr. Popale, and this is one of the original songs. So, if you don't know who Mr. Popale is,
you haven't been watching TV.
You haven't been watching TV in the 80s, and the 70s for that matter, too, because...
Well, our generation is probably more familiar with his son, Ron, and not Sam.
And not the original. But either Mr. Popale applies in this song, because they are the ones who came up with all kinds of wacky-ass inventions, like the pocket fisherman, which is a freaking fishing pole that, like, is retractable and you can put in your pocket. And then it refers to, like, all these other products that he was just on these TV commercials, and sometimes is the precursor to the infomercial. On these commercials advertising these crazy-ass products he refers to. Ginsu knives and the smokeless ashtray, and then it talks about how they would bundle things together for deals, because it goes on like, now how much would you pay? That was always a line. It's like, you think you might pay this, but no, how much do you pay?
Well, this song it's an homage to the B-52s.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of elements to Rock Lobster in this song.
Oh, yeah.
Also, one thing that you may not have known, one of the backup singers was Sam Papil's daughter.
Yes, I did know that.
Okay.
And I was going to mention it, but you just did.
Oh, yeah. I love me some B-52s. This song,
Well, this song for me, it just reminds me. A lot of this album is just reminding me of highlights of sort of little happy memories from the '80s, like with watching TV and stuff. A lot of it.
And that's why I'm not, throwing the hammer at this particular song here, because again, like I said, before we started, I have all the respect for Weird Al. It's just kind of like his humor is a lot like Jeff Foxworthy with, you might be a redneck type of deal. And what I mean by that is this. I mean, if you hear it once, you're going to laugh.
Yeah, like the first few times you hear it, you're like, that's funny. And then after a while, you're just like, okay, we've had enough.
It's been 20 fucking years. Think of a different joke.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And that's how I kind of feel with him, because it's, his career speaks for itself. If he were not musically talented at being able to do what he did, we wouldn't be talking about him today.
He is very musically talented, regardless of the subject matter. He has talent. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's just for me, my taste.
Yeah. There was one thing this song referred to that it reminded me of something that I hadn't thought of in a while, was the concept of the COD, which means cash on delivery, which was an option where basically you would pay the postman the money you owed for whatever it was that they were going to send you. And a lot of times they would say no CODs. And because the thing is the COD, that was one way that women could shop from catalogs and stuff. Mm-hmm. Because women weren't really allowed to have credit cards in their own name until the 70s. Literally. Jeez. Banks would not issue a credit card to a woman unless she was married.
You don't need a credit card to do dishes. Go.
Pretty much, yeah. It was that. You couldn't get it. I think that was one of the cases that Ruth Bader Ginsburg first worked on when she was a lawyer.
Jeez.
Getting women access to equal credit. I may be wrong about that. But, yeah, and that's why the COD was invented, so that women could call into a catalog or whatever and order something and then just pay when the postman brought it. And then the postman would send the money back. And that's why there was an extra fee as a COD fee. That was a fee the post office charged.
But then probably people over-abused it.
So it was just too much of a hassle. And the postman had other things to do. And then by the 80s, women were getting their own credit cards. And then there was access to toll-free numbers too. So you could just call in and order with your credit card. Do it that way. So, or you could just mail in a check.
I remember in junior high, one summer, I would call some of these 800 numbers up and it'd be, articulate, funny stuff, when they answered, I'd fart into the phone type of deal.
Yeah, we do stupid things like that. My favorite thing was to, take the phone into the bathroom and flush the toilet. I don't know what I had, a tape recorder, too. I don't know what it was about recording the toilet flushing, but I used to do that on a regular basis, and I think I was just, wondering, what if I angle the mic this way, will it sound different than if I angle the mic this way? That was part of my fascination with sound and recording things. And I don't know why I was obsessed with the toilet, but I probably bumped the water bill up a couple times back when I was playing around with my little tape recorder.
Reminds me of that comedian Jim Florentine. I was just talking with Aubrey about this the other day. But what he will do is constantly put his information out for telemarketers to call him. And then when they do, he will just royally fuck with them. And one was a computer repair service that called him, and all he would do is just go, I got mail, yay! I got mail. And then just play the AOL, you got mail. And go, I got mail, I got mail, I got... But he would go on for 2 minutes.
Oh my gosh. God. And then, of course, the operator on the other end of the phone is probably like, if I am rude to this guy, I'm going to lose my job.
Stupid kids.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I've done telephone related support, and I've been pranked before, and you're just I'm pretty sure this is a prank, but I don't want to say anything because all calls could be recorded for training purposes, and I don't want that to be the call where it's why were you rude to that person? And it's part of me is
it was an Arnold Schwarzenegger soundboard, dick. Come on.
Part of me wants to be so rude sometimes, but I'm nope, it's my job to be nice. Anyhow, we're on to track 8, which is King of Suede, based on King of Pain by The Police.
And this was painful to listen to.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this song. Well, the original, I'm not a huge. Sometimes there's a couple songs by The Police I like. If I'm in the mood for them, I'm like really in the mood for them, and I want to listen to them. But there was a lot of stuff going on in this song. Just a lot of rhymes and a lot of words running together. And while it's interesting to listen to because of the fact that he can get all the lyrics out, it's just like, that's a lot of stuff happening in one store.
You know, it's the most musically accurate of the parodies in my opinion. But you have to your point, yes, it takes a true artist to be able to do what he does. You just, if you don't like where he's going with it, though, it makes it really painful to listen to.
Yeah.
And, I mean...
And it helps if you like that song by The Police, and I'm kind of...
And The Police are...
on that song.
I mean, The Police, I'm in the same camp as you are. I mean, I like some of their songs, but I do find, Sting especially really kind of creepy and stalkery, and, every breath you take, every little thing she does is magic. Just, even as a white man, I'm cringing, and I can just imagine how women feel who have to actually deal with that from guys who are like that. So.
Yeah, I've actually seen Sting in concert, and it was a free show. I got to go for free because a friend of mine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a friend of mine was going to go with her husband, but her husband got the flu and was like barfing and was like, nope, I'm not going. So she calls me up at the last minute. It's like, are you free tonight? You want to go see Sting with Annie Lennox opening? And I was like, Annie Lennox? Yeah, let's go. That's
I would go to that.
Yeah, that was my whole thing. I wanted to see Annie Lennox.
Yeah.
But Sting was pretty good too. But yeah, the thing with Sting is I always think of him as playing Fade Routha in Dune. And when there's one point where Fade and Paul are gonna have a knife fight, and he's all in that diaper. He's really oily with that weird diaper thing on. He's all, I will kill him, and I'm just like, dude.
There are two Sting stories. One, Dune. And now that you speak of it, when that movie was released, there were collectible cards that were sold. For that movie, and my mother bought me a couple of packs of those for Christmas. So that image of the oiled up Sting with the diaper was one of those cards I had to see on Christmas.
Nothing says Christmas like oiled up Sting.
So thanks, Ma.
If you can hear us, thanks, Mom.
And she's in the closet.
That's right, she's in the closet. If you haven't listened to this show before, Tim's mom sadly passed away, but she was cremated and now lives in our closet.
Yeah. The second thing is wrestling related with Sting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Sting never trademarked the name Sting.
That's right. I remember.
And the professional wrestler who goes by the name of Sting, Steve Borden, he copyrighted it. But what he did is that he essentially leases the name Sting to the musician Sting for $1 a year.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm laughing so much this episode. It's good. That's a good thing.
And I'm the one who used the marijuana. Hey.
All right, track 9 is That Boy Could Dance, and that's one of the original songs on the album.
If only that boy could write a good song.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this song either. I'm just...
This was 80s nonsense at its worst. Every era of music, especially, today on back through time, has a song that just encapsulates that particular one very small moment in time, but you take it out of that and it sounds like garbage.
Yeah, that's this song.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing else to say then. Okay, cool.
Yeah, fuck you, Weird Al. No.
Track 10 is the theme from Rocky 13, which is a parody of Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. I like this one because it's about food.
That was my note, though. Another food song.
Food song.
And then I had the faceplant emoji.
Faceplant emoji, okay. Well, I don't know, it makes me think of like a chunky Sylvester Stallone in like a apron and a chef's hat, like behind the counter, like, try the rye of the Kaiser,
Well, Rocky did end up owning a restaurant called Adrian's.
Well, I know,
in the
but
movies. So
but still,
none of the
I'm
realm
just
of possibility.
yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I'm just
Hey, oh,
I'm-
hey,
yeah.
Paulie.
yeah, I'm just picturing this like big old meathead behind the counter of a deli, like, hey, what you want? Try the rye or the Kaiser. I can't do that kind of accent. It's not my thing. But
Go get 'em, Rock. Go in the kitchen, Rock. God damn it. Make them a pumpernickel. I don't know.
pumpernickel. Did you know that means goblin fart?
I did not know that.
Yeah, pumpernickel bread means goblin fart.
Okay.
Yep, more you know. Yep. Track 11. This is one of the original tracks. It's called Nature Trail to Hell. I like this one. I like this one a lot because it makes me think of cheesy movies at the drive-thru.
I mean, this did make me think about. I mean, I didn't go to the drive-thru. We didn't have a local drive-thru in the area in Grand Rapids when I was a kid. Whatever. But this brought me back to watching USA Up all night. You know, and how they would replay the old Nightmare on Elm Street films. They would play the trauma films. So seeing horror movies like that in that era. And there's one, I forgot the name of it, but one of the actresses in the movie, Lene Quinley. There's a scene where she takes her lipstick and then like shoves it into her boob. I forgot the name of it, and I will post it up on our Facebook group as well as Twitter and Instagram when we post the episode. But it was in 1988, and it was just weird. But it brought me back to watching bad schlocky movies like that.
Yeah.
The song wasn't a fan. I'm sorry, but
I like how it gets like super like almost like kind of full of itself and serious in a way when it's all like Nature Trail to Hell, and you've got these like got the like the screaming
sound effects.
Yeah, and the sound effects, and it's I like it. It's fun to listen to, and it just reminds me of also bad movie trailers. It reminds me of the old movie trailers where they'd be like
in a world where
yeah, this sort of thing, but where it was more like rather than like clips from the movie, like really spliced together really fast, cut together like they are now. It'd be like one like a long cut, and then there'd be some text across the screen being, like the heroine did not know what was coming. See next week, and you won't believe your eyes. That kind of, and if you've ever watched like an old horror movie trailer, like for like an old black and white horror movie, you'll know what I mean. A good example of a trailer that I'm thinking of is the one for the movie Them, which is about giant ants from outer space. I think they're from outer space. I forget. I saw the movie.
Yeah.
They did a special screening at the Hollywood. It was quite a few years ago. It was actually back when I was married. That's why I'm thinking of it. But yeah, I went with my now ex-husband and his best friend, and it was giant ants, and it was really fun. But yeah, the trailers, and they showed a whole bunch of old trailers beforehand for other older horror movies, which are just fun to watch. So if you like Google like 50s horror trailers,
yeah,
you'll come up with some good ones.
I mean, movie trailers these days they don't tell a story as much as they used to in the past. I mean, even taking just simply like iconic images, like I think the first Nightmare on Elm Street trailer, every single one had that image of Nancy in the tub with Freddy's hand coming out of the water.
Yeah, or just the claws coming across the screen.
Yeah. It's they're not as imaginative as they used to be because they wanted, filmmakers in the past, especially in horror movies, knew that, the audience could come up with more horrific stuff in their own heads than they could show on screen. Whereas these days you have the torture porn stuff, which doesn't do much for you.
Yeah, and plus there weren't as many viewing options. There weren't as many things you could go and see.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think people spent as much time necessarily on entertainment. So you kind of had to like lure them in, there was a reason why they called them teasers, is you're teasing them like, look what just might happen. And a lot of times trailers for movies now almost show you like exactly what's going to happen. So
I remember the trailer for Titanic. The trailer for Titanic, it was like 2 minutes long, but it told the entire fucking story of the movie.
Which is ridiculous to begin with. I mean, everybody knows the Titanic sinks. There's the movie. So
yeah, you want to be brought in, for other reasons, but
what blows my mind is the people who went into Titanic and being surprised that the ship sinks, everybody dies.
We're a country that nominated Donald Trump as
I
president.
know, I guess
so...
I shouldn't be surprised, but I still think about that sometimes. That there were people who literally went to see Titanic and were like shocked when the ship sunk.
What? I didn't know the ship done sank. What?
The ship sank and everyone died? That's terrible. Why'd we watch that? No. And we're being terrible in our own way because we're making fun of people from the South. And not everybody from the South is an ignorant idiot.
I forgot to bring this up at the start of the episode, but since we're done with the album review, I'll
Yes.
put it in real quick. I did want to gush like a teenage girl about
Country music.
Yeah, a Casey Musgraves song. She ended up covering a song from Brooks and Dunn of all people, called Neon Moon. And I even went back and listened to the original garbage. I mean, lyrically it's okay, but in terms of the lyrics written down and whatnot, but they sound like the type of guys that would want to introduce you to their wife and sister, and there's only one woman standing next to them.
I can't believe you told that joke.
I love that joke. Yeah.
I'm rolling my eyes so hard right now.
The type of people that watch old episodes of The Dukes of Hazzard and have to have the plot explained to them,
Oh, jeez.
But she made, it's a beautiful song. Just if you find it, Casey Musgraves, Neon Moon, listen to that song. Oh my God.
Alrighty, so one of the reasons why I chose this album this week is because Weird Al Yankovic reminds me of my ex-husband, which this is a good thing. My ex-husband and I, when we were first dating, it was 1999, about to turn 2000, and we went into downtown Portland to Pioneer Courthouse Square because they were having a big year 2000 party. And so we get on, we're like, okay, it's going to be packed. We're just going to take the bus down there because the buses in Portland are free on New Year's Eve. So they're encouraging people not to drink and drive, which is a good thing. And boy, howdy, the people on that bus took advantage of I'm not going to drink and drive. They were drunk. There were so many drunk people on that bus. It was insane. So I must mention that my ex, Alex, he had a passing resemblance to Weird Al Yankovic. He had really long curly hair at the time. It was kind of poofy. This was before I introduced him to hair care products. And
I don't have
and
that
he
word.
had a beard and glasses, and he had a passing resemblance to Weird Al Yankovic, especially if you're a drunk person. And there was a woman on the bus who was like, "Oh my God, it's Weird Al Yankovic," and Alex is like, "Where?" And and she's like, "Oh my God, Weird Al, I love your music," and he's like, "I'm not Weird Al Yankovic." And she would not believe him. And I'm just like, lady, Weird Al Yankovic would not be on the bus right now. She thought that Weird Al was going to be down in Pioneer Courthouse Square performing. And, oh my God, he's on the bus. No, he wasn't on the bus. Anyway.
Yeah, his album sold better than that.
By the time it got to her stop, she was just so excited. She's like, I gotta tell everybody I got to meet Weird Al. She grabs him. She lays this kiss on him and runs off the bus. And Alex is just beat red. He was not a very, he didn't like big public stuff like that. He was so embarrassed. And everybody on the bus is just cracking up. And anyway, so thinking about this album reminded me of Alex. And the thing about Alex is he took his own life about 4 years ago this month. And I miss him. He was a good person. We divorced. But we split on pretty good terms for divorce. There wasn't any fighting or anything like that. We just grew apart and we couldn't mend it. But yeah, he killed himself. And it's hard to talk about. It's been 4 years, but the grief doesn't go away. And that's why I want to talk about it right now, is I know a lot of people this time of year have a hard time after the holidays. It's not easy. Winter is a hard time for a lot of folks. So if you're feeling low, if you're depressed, if you're thinking about suicide, please think again. Because people love you. The people you leave behind be left feeling hurt and confused and lost. And will still be grieving even 4 years after you're gone. So if you're feeling bad and you need help, there are people can help you. There are resources. Ask for help because it's there. You can start by going to Google. You can Google suicide prevention. There's a national hotline, and that hotline is 800-273-TALK. It's 800-273-8255. You can find that on Google. If you're uncomfortable talking to strangers, if you want help in person, if your employer may have something that's called an employee assistance program or an EAP. It's a confidential service. Your employer pays for it. You can call them. You can find that usually on your company's intranet. You can call them and ask to see a counselor. I've taken advantage of that through EAPs before. They generally will give you like 4 visits free, and if you need further help, they can refer you to somebody else. It's a great resource. EAPs are an excellent resource for a lot of things. You can get help if you're having legal issues. You can get help there. If you're having any kind of problems with like your taxes, you need help with like your resume. EAPs have so many resources. They're a great way to get counseling. So please, if you're having a hard time and you're thinking about hurting yourself, please stop for a moment. There are people that love you. Your pets love you. They need you around. Everybody needs you. Please get help. Please get help. Thank you.
We will leave it at that. And yeah, we'll see you all next week. And I think the end theme song that we have been having the past few weeks kind of speaks volumes here. Just remember what Mr. Rogers would say.
It's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling. You're growing inside, and when you wake up ready to say, I think I'll make a snappy new day. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling. The feeling you know that I'll be back when the day is new. And I'll have more ideas for you. And you'll have things you'll want to talk about. I will too. You always make each day such a special day. You know how? By just your being you. Only one person in the whole world like you. That's you yourself. I'll be back next time. Bye-bye.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.